Alright, what's good y'all? Soul here, and welcome back to my story mode. So, a few weeks ago, I lied to you guys. I told you guys in a recent video that I probably wouldn't be talking too much more about Pokemon Legends ZA until we started getting more news about it. That was not entirely true. As Editor Soul stated, I got one more in me. And even then, that might be a lie, so I'm not gonna set anything in stone just yet. Either way though, all of that is just a little off topic, so why don't we go ahead and get on track here. One question that I don't believe that I have ever asked, even since Pokemon Legends Arceus came out, has been in the back of my mind for years now. However, because Pokemon Legends Arceus was the first and only of its kind, there was really no reason to ask this question yet. There was also a couple of things in the Scarlet and Violet DLC that related back to Pokemon Legends that also made me question the validity of this question. However, now that Pokemon Legends ZA is very much a real thing, we can finally ask this question. Is Pokemon Legends a mainline or spin-off series? Now, of course, we are very early on a couple of aspects considering the fact that Pokemon Legends ZA isn't even out yet. However, calling it a series now that we have another game in the works with the exact same title, I don't think it's all that crazy. Then of course, there's the fact that because we don't have the game, we don't know if it operates on the same level or plane as Pokemon Legends Arceus. One thing is very clear though, there's no way they're gonna give up on the Legends name. Not after the success of Legends Arceus, and not after the hype garnered from Pokemon Legends ZA. So there's no doubt in my or a lot of other people's minds that we're going to be getting a series out of Legends. Now the big question remains, is this a mainline series or a spin-off series? Now, of course, considering the fact that I'm making this video, I've already come to my conclusion, but before I give you my answer, why don't I go ahead and explain how we got here? You already know what's going down. Go ahead, grab a nice fat and cozy blanket, get your steak, dip it in the craziest amount of chocolate that you can find, and let's go ahead and consider the possibility of Pokemon Legends becoming a mainline or a spin-off series. Now here's the thing, right? I haven't seen videos about this topic. I'm sure plenty of people have talked about it. I'm sure everybody and their mamas has already come to their own conclusions. I, for one, have not seen those videos, and to my knowledge, I haven't made a video about this topic myself. I could be wrong on that though. One thing I did see a lot though, whether it be in my comment section or some title of an article or something like that, was whether or not we were getting a mainline game next year. Some people were arguing that it is a mainline game. Plenty of others were arguing that it wasn't. And you guys know Pokemon. They are not going to go out of their way to distinctly tell us yes or no whether or not a game is mainline or spin-off. Hell, it probably benefits them more to not tell us, to let us just openly speculate and guess forever. So, since that's all that we're left with, we have to decide for ourselves whether or not we believe it fits into either one of those categories. But why don't we delve a little into those categories? Firstly, what makes a game a mainline game anyway? In the case of Pokemon, it could be a very good couple of things. For example, the titles and subtitles of pretty much any Pokemon game. In the case of mainline Pokemon games that we've known from generations 1 to 9, the title in of itself has always been Pokemon, while the subtitle has always been something else. Pokemon Color, Pokemon Jewel, Pokemon Item. It's really funny, now that I think about it, that we've never just had Pokemon. It's always been Pokemon and a subtitle, red and blue being the first. How strange. Anyway, Pokemon has always had that, its title and then its subtitle. Pokemon Legends in that aspect is very strange, because the title is Pokemon Legends. The subtitle, in the case of Legends Arceus, is Arceus. In the case of ZA, it's ZA. I'm sure that plenty of people have discussed this thoroughly, but I haven't heard anybody really talk about it, but that's definitely something worth noting. Because it's now a branching series, the title Pokemon Legends, those two words cannot be separated from one another. That is the title. So with that alone, somebody could probably easily make the argument that it stands alone as a spin-off series. Probably wouldn't be your strongest argument, but it's definitely a good one. Pokemon Masters, Pokemon Go, Pokemon Cafe Remix. All of those are spin-offs that are full titles. I know, it all sounds really ridiculous and something not really worth diving into all that much, but you get what I'm getting at. No Pokemon game with another word in the title connected to Pokemon is usually considered a mainline game. And so, Pokemon Legends sits in that awkward space because it has a last name, Legends. Okay, fine, that's a valid argument, but what else can we decipher here? Well, one of the first things that usually comes to mind is if the game has lore importance to the mainline series whatsoever. For example, right? You take the Shin Megami Tensei series and then you look at the Persona series. Persona is a spin-off of the Shin Megami Tensei series because while it utilizes a lot of the same mechanics and aspects, it doesn't share the same world. It also doesn't share the same rules. The long and short of it is, Persona essentially borrows the ideas of Shin Megami Tensei to become its own identity. There's no plot or story involved to make it so that you have to play one to play the other. You can play them both as entirely separate entities. Even though, ironically, Persona has massively destroyed Shin Megami Tensei in terms of sales and popularity, but this is a Pokemon channel, so let's not talk about that right now. So anyway, you try to bring that logic over to Pokemon and Pokemon Legends, and that's where things start to get a little dicey. The reason it's strange is because it does share the same world, it does share the same rules, and it does, for better or for worse, share a story. It's not a very strong connection, sure. However, these people, these characters that are involved in Pokemon Legends Arceus are ancestors of characters that we already know from other Pokemon games. Without the existence of these characters in Pokemon Legends Arceus, we would not have a lot of characters that we know and love in other Pokemon games. So yeah, the games are absolutely undeniably connected in more ways than one. Now, one argument that somebody could try to make is that you don't really need to play anything else to play Pokemon Legends Arceus, as it's completely standalone as a side project. One could have absolutely never played Pokemon Red and Blue all the way up to Scarlet and Violet and still have a phenomenal time with the Legends games. But you see, that doesn't really work as an argument because no Pokemon game has ever operated on the basis that you need to play a prior Pokemon game. With logic like that, every Pokemon game is a spin-off of another Pokemon game, and that's just simply not true. So in terms of a shared world and story, yeah, no, Legends does fit the baseline for that at the very least. Another argument that's consistently made is the fact that it is absolutely missing mechanics from previous Pokemon games. We've already discussed it a million times over by now. Yes, it's missing held items. Yes, it's missing abilities. And in turn, it's also missing a competitive online aspect. Now again, it's hard to say whether or not that was intentional or because they were on a bit of a time crunch because, again, like I've said a million times over, Legends was not meant to exist the way that it did. When you're doing a rush job on things, you kinda have to cut corners sometimes, and for a title like Pokemon Legends, there were some aspects that they felt weren't really necessary for the overall arcing gameplay. And in turn, those mechanics were substituted by plenty of other mechanics. However, when you really boil things down to the nitty-gritty, are those missing mechanics really enough to say that it's not mainline? The main meat and potatoes of Pokemon as a franchise, especially in the mainline games, is that it's a monster collector RPG. As far as a mainline Pokemon game works, you go out into the world, you collect 6 Pokemon, you battle in turn-based combat, and you try to complete the game as either the strongest or as the world's protector. Or more accurately in Pokemon's case, as a researcher. Well, in Pokemon Legends, let's see. You go out into the world, albeit it's not really yours, you're more so isekai'd. You catch pocket monsters, level them up, utilize them in turn-based combat, and you can only have 6 at a time, and you battle to either protect the world or become the world's strongest. So yeah, while it does appear to be missing a couple of details here and there as far as some mechanics, it does seem to hit the main beats in terms of gameplay to make it a mainline Pokemon game. Yes, it is missing a lot of traditional elements from mainline Pokemon games. However, it also introduces a lot of its own unique elements to really separate itself from that series that we already know. The reason it's able to become a Legends title game in the first place is because it's utilizing those aspects and building upon those as opposed to following traditional Pokemon games. However, all at the same time, at the end of the day, it feels a lot closer to a traditional mainline Pokemon game than it does to a spin-off. It doesn't play like Poke Park or Pokemon Rangers or Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. It plays a lot more like the original titles. So it's definitely safe to say there could be arguments made on both sides, and while it's probably obvious where I stand on either of those sides, we have one more question to answer here. Does it really matter whether or not it's considered a mainline or a spin-off game? In the biggest grand scheme overlook of things, no, not really at all. When it boils down to it, a good game is a good game, right? It doesn't really matter whether it's considered a mainline or a spin-off or whatever third thing. If you're playing that game and you enjoy it and it so happens to be a Pokemon title, then hey, you're enjoying said Pokemon title. Doesn't matter what it is. When you're a kid, you're not thinking mainline or spin-off, you're thinking, oh, this is kind of within that realm, I kind of want to play it. And you play it and you either enjoy it or you don't. It's as simple as that. However, in a deeper look, I do kind of think it's important. Or at the very least, I think it's irresponsible to not differentiate the two. If somebody seems interested in the Pokemon series and they have some kind of interest in Pokemon Legends Arceus or ZA first, I'm not gonna stop them from trying those games first by any means. I'm not gonna just sit there and be like, oh, those are just spin-off games. You don't need to worry about that. Partly because they're still very fun, and B, because it would be kind of wrong to call them that. Yeah, so if it wasn't obvious, yeah, I obviously believe that these are mainline games. You could argue with me day and night, but yeah, these are primary games in the Pokemon franchise. There's a reason we're not getting anything else next year other than Pokemon Legends ZA. So there you go, there you have my answer. Assuming that Pokemon Legends ZA is going to follow in the footsteps of its predecessor, taking place in the past, and shedding a little bit of light on history that we know of from other games, albeit a very dim light. But a light is a light, and as long as these games have an effect on each other, I think it's safe to call them mainline just like you would Pokemon Scarlet and Violet or Pokemon Sword and Shield. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that much because we're all going to be picking these games up anyway, and something tells me that no matter how much history they give us in these games, it's not going to be a substantial amount. Just enough to get us to keep playing the game. But hey, maybe that's just me. So that just about wraps it up for this one. Can you tell that there's really not much to talk about in the space of Pokemon right now, because for the last like 5-6 months, they haven't really given us any information to work with? How interesting is that? But it doesn't really matter. I'm just gonna keep doing my thing. I have a couple of things to talk about here and there, albeit a little random, and I do have a project that is actually in the works for you guys at this moment. I'm just figuring out a way to edit it so it doesn't get in the way of regular scheduled uploads, because that's gonna be a big one. So we'll play that by ear. But for now, the mic is getting passed over in your direction, and you're gonna sit there and tell me what you guys are thinking in the comment section below. Do you agree with me that the games are actually mainline and that Pokemon Legends EA is just as important as any prior game in the mainline series? Or do you consider these games spin-offs and we're not getting a mainline game for a good while because these games do not count as mainline to you? Tell me everything that you guys are thinking in the comment section below, because you know for a fact that I am always gonna be down there with you guys. But with that, it does appear to be skedaddle o'clock, so I'm gonna go ahead and do just that. I would like to thank you guys ever so much for watching. I truly do hope you enjoyed. Do me the greatest favor of dropping a like and a comment, and consider subscribing for more content just like this here. And with that, I'm gone. So thanks again, hope you enjoyed, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Do me the greatest favor, taking good ass care, and I'll see you all next time.